What really happened to two Dutch hikers who disappeared in Panama? Hi, welcome to Mystery Godz. Today we will talk about the story of the two female Dutch hikers who disappeared in Panama. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe so I can do more videos similar to these. Thank you. Let's start. The students intended to volunteer with children. Students Lisanne Froon and Kris came from the Netherlands to Panama on March 14, 2014, with the intention of assisting local communities, volunteering with children, learning Spanish, and relaxing a little. However, a misunderstanding caused them to arrive in Bokeh too early for their program, which cremers described as rude and not at all pleasant in a diary post. They will try to contact the tomorrow. This was a big letdown, the note added. The date on the calendar was April 1st, the day of their fatal hike. They went for a walk with a dog and never returned. On April 2nd, 2014, the women wanted to explore as much of Bokeh as possible, so they hired a guide to take them around. They chose to explore the area surrounding the active Bar volcano near the Continental Divide the day before the guided trip. According to a geographical expert, the 3-mile region is quite easy to explore, and most missing tourists either return on their own or come across search groups hunting for them. On April 1, 2014, cremers and Froon headed out into the wilderness along the Pianista Trail with only a rucksack between them. Blue, a well-known neighborhood dog, is said to have followed them down the route. It was the last time the women were seen alive. The dog was unharmed when he returned. Aside from the dog, the young women hiked alone, only asking for directions from a local innkeeper, who recommended them to take a cab back to town. When Blue, the dog, returned from the trip alone, people began to think something had occurred. When neither Froon nor cremers appeared, the community resolved to call the police the following day. Meanwhile, on April 2, 2014, the couple failed to appear for their scheduled trip with their paid tour guide. When neither Froon nor cremers' families received their customary check-in call, they got anxious. Authorities launched an aircraft search of the woodlands and an on-foot search of Bokeh on April 3, 2014. The initial search was fruitless until a Native American woman discovered their backpack. Authorities undertook foot and aircraft searches in the days after the students' disappearances. On April 6, 2014, the parents of both women became anxious and traveled to Panama with Dutch detectives. When the family and investigators arrived, they launched a huge search. For a time, many believed Froon and cremers had never gotten lost on the mountain but were actually victims of a crime in town. However, this was eventually proven incorrect. The search went into the woodlands where the young women were walking, including on-foot search teams and dog units. Teams examined for 10 days, their search was cut back on April 14, 2014, but it continued for another 10 weeks. A lady from the neighboring Ngabi tribe turned in a blue bag she claimed she found on the bank of a nearby river. Sunglasses, a camera, 2 mobile phones, money, 2 bras, Froon's passport, and a water bottle were all in the backpack. Their phone records revealed attempted 911 calls made days after they went missing. Authorities now had a lead after discovering the women's phones. Investigators discovered a perplexing and bleak timeline after examining the phones. The phones stayed on for nearly 10 days after the couple went missing. During this period, cremers and Froon constantly requested assistance. They dialed 112, the Dutch emergency number, as well as 911, the Panamanian emergency number. They made a number of emergency calls a few hours into their trek. However, logs reveal that they only connected once owing to poor coverage in the jungle. This connected call remained steady for around 2 seconds. After the attempted calls, the phone stayed on for some time. Cremers' locked phone showed someone entered a wrong PIN several times. Accordingly, Cremers' phone was powered on one last time on April 11, 2014, both phones went dead afterward. Given the timeline, authorities assumed at least one of the women was alive at the time, 5 days into the search. Strange photos were captured by the camera. The girl's camera captured proof of what may have occurred. There were moreover 100 images on the camera. The first few looked like typical tourist photos, with the women laughing together. The tone of the images, though, began to shift. One image, dated around the time of the emergency calls, showed Cremers with what appeared to be a concern on her face. Following that, the photographs were taken on April 8, 2014, between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. These included vistas of greenery, canyons, and a bridge, as well as seemingly odd things like a stick with plastic stuck to it. Several explanations have been suggested by experts as to how and why the women took these photographs. The haphazard photographs appeared concentrated, as though taken with firm hands, implying that they were deliberate. Perhaps the photographs acted as trail markers, guiding the young women around or back to the rescuers. Because it was dark, the couple may have used the camera flash as a light source or to frighten away animals. Others claim that neither Froon nor Cremers took the photographs. They believe the women were kidnapped. One photo suggests Cremers was injured. Froon's parents asked the police not to release all of the images from the camera to the public. Some photographs allegedly showed Cremers and Froon in a bad state. The newscasters on a Panama-based TV show unintentionally released some photographs during the broadcast. This happened again on a Dutch TV show. The second program included a shot of the back of a person's head, which was thought to be Cremers. The photograph appears to show Cremers with a cut on her head and blood on her hair. This led to speculation about how Cremers suffered an injury during the hike, and Froon perhaps used the camera for light, or to document Cremers' last known whereabouts before seeking help. If harm came to Cremers, the photos could have been intended to help rescuers determine her location based on visual markers. Their belongings were perfectly arranged when they arrived. Following the finding of the backpack, the search for the young women resumed, this time in a different location. Authorities conducted an investigation along the Rio Culebra, often known as the Serpent River, near the town of Alto Romero. This was a long way from the trail Cremers and Froon had set out on, so they had either gotten lost or changed their plans. This time, the search turned up something: Cremers' clothing, neatly folded and arranged on the river's edge. The shorts appeared zipped and folded, placed above the water line about a half-mile upstream from where the local tribal woman allegedly found the backpack. Curiously, the garments showed up on the opposite side of the river from where the women took all their photos. Thanks to a severed foot, searchers were able to locate the bodies. Further investigations found uncovered human remains 2 months after Cremers' clothes were discovered. Searchers discovered a shoe under a tree beside the river, near where the backpack was claimed to have been recovered. It had a sock, a human foot, and ankle bones, as well as enough flesh for DNA testing. DNA testing had connected the foot to Froon by the end of August 2014. Later, additional bones and skin fragments were discovered, totaling 33 skeleton remains. They also discovered scraps of Cremers' skin in the forest. While the young women were evidently dead, none of the evidence explained how they died. The bodies were in pieces, likely scattered by the river over time. Much was lost. No marks on the bones indicated damage, and some of the bones appeared bleached. The only other suggestion of injury was remnants of bones from Froon's foot, though a broken foot wouldn't have killed her. Though they found the women, authorities did not know how their deaths occurred. Before the women vanished, 2 Dutch males were seen with them. Authorities had the challenge of determining why and how the ladies died. They started looking for anyone of interest, trying to figure out if the women had any other company than the dog. The innkeeper they spoke with stated Froon and Kremers were alone and had asked for directions before the trip. No one was with them at this time. However, police learned later from a Facebook post the pair met with some people before their trip. In the post, Froon and Kremers said they shared brunch with two Dutch men on the last day anyone saw the women. However, no reports cropped up about these two men. The deaths of the women were ruled an accident by the authorities. Investigators finally reached their findings in March 2015, about a year after Kremers and Froon flew to Panama. Their investigation revealed that the women were most likely involved in an accident along the trail but were lost in the wilderness. Froon was said to have fallen a long distance and perished in or near the river. This idea is supported by her foot. Specialists claimed the breaks in the ankle and foot could only come from a high-altitude fall. The photographs captured the day that the ladies attempted to contact emergency services, most likely after Kremers was injured. They couldn't find their way back in the dark. Froon died while attempting to escape the jungle, leaving Kremers dead or dying. The remnants then disintegrated as a result of the water and rain and were strewn over kilometers. The riddle had finally been solved, and the case could be put to rest. Some people, though, were skeptical. People criticized Panama's handling of the investigation. Many people believed that the Panamanian authorities handled the issue poorly. According to Adela Coriat, a journalist for the Panamanian newspaper La Estrella, the whole affair was a shambles. She stated that no chain of custody has been established for the discovered evidence or remains. She further stated that the 30 prints discovered on the bag were not only unidentifiable, but that none of the indigenous peoples engaged in the case had their prints documented. She expressed additional worry about the analysis of the electronics, claiming that the condition of the equipment discovered was incongruous with the location where it was discovered. The absence of damage to the equipment seemed suspicious, but the authorities did not investigate, and they also did not examine a snapshot removed from the camera. Enrique Aroca, a lawyer representing the Kremers family, expressed worry over the management of evidence. He stated that no forensic examination was done at the crime scene, and that the evidence and its sources remained uncorroborated. Furthermore, the skulls and other significant bones of the ladies are still missing, which might provide a more conclusive cause of death. There have been allegations of a cover-up. Because of the mismanagement of evidence, conspiracy theories, and accusations of cover-ups by the police and administration gained traction. Some suspect that the indigenous inhabitants of the region murdered the couple and are now concealing the crime by giving over evidence and appearing to cooperate. Others speculated that the killings were the result of cartels or organ traffickers, which would explain why the bodies were in parts. While there are several hypotheses regarding what transpired, one recurring theme is that the Panamanian government and authorities kept silent on purpose. Why would they do such a thing? According to certain analysts and others engaged in the case, it was all done in the name of tourism, which brings in a lot of money to Panama. Because the perception of Panama as unsafe is possibly detrimental to tourism, it is easier to believe that these women perished in an accident. Adela Coriat, a journalist, voiced the same sentiment to the Daily Beast in 2017. It's a shame, because no real inquiry was ever conducted. Everything had to be kept quiet in order to safeguard tourism. I want visitors to visit Panama as well, but the government must continue to perform its job. The victims deserve justice. And their families deserve to know the truth. Later evidence suggested that foul play may have occurred. Did someone assassinate Froon and Kremers? Over 24 additional visitors went missing or were found deceased in this area between 2009 and 2017. A re-examination of the case in 2017 uncovered enough evidence to imply that these disappearances, including those of Froon and Kremers, may have been the work of a serial murderer. According to leaked law enforcement records, someone dismembered the young ladies and intentionally dispersed their remains, which might have occurred to others as well. Previously, officials claimed that the bones were spread by the river and scavengers, but a Chirique state judicial investigation stated otherwise. According to the report, the evidence pointed to homicide following an 18-month inquiry. When this is combined with other unresolved issues, such as how the two young ladies wound up so far off the main route, some may suspect a killing. Internet groups are still looking into the disappearances. Though police can revisit the case at any moment, considering how many years have gone, no one can explain what happened to froon and kremers in Panama's jungles. That's all we know about this story. Comment down below your thoughts on this story, and if you want more stories similar to this one, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.